But I am very happy to be convening the last chapter chat of the year. Thank you all for being here. We will handle this the way we always do, which is we'll start off with me reading questions and answering them and then allowing y'all to weigh in. Um, since we have a little bit of a smaller group, um, if you can rename yourself with your name dash your chapter, that would be great. Um, and it just makes it a little helpful. But since I have you all, I'm going to start with some of the questions that may sound familiar to you. Someone asked, what do you do when you have a board member who's negative? Well, we've all known those people. And the difficulty is the old expression that your grandmother told you about one bad apple ruining the whole bunch is especially true if you have a negative or an unengaged member, especially of your leadership team. Y'all are working so hard. And to have even one person that is Debbie Downer is probably a good opportunity to have the important but very difficult conversation that says, can we talk about your attitude? This is obviously a private conversation. Can we talk about your attitude? I sense that you're not very happy, or I sense that this might not be working for you. And let her explain, let her sort of give you her viewpoint. And ultimately, I don't want to sound too terribly harsh, but I would tell her that you will miss her. She brings great skills. She's wonderful in all these ways. But that you simply cannot afford to have the negative energy bringing the rest of the group down, and that you hope very much she will stay a member, but it's not helpful or productive for her or for the rest of the team if she feels so negative. Now, there are people, we all know about resting faith, right? We know what that means. So it could also be possible that she doesn't actually think she's grumpy and negative. It could simply be that it's her sense of humor or her manner, her way of being in the world that can come off that way. So she might be surprised when you ask her about it. Mm. And if that's the case, explain to her, gosh, I'll give you an example. We were talking about this and you said that, or we were talking about this and your eyes rolled and you closed your notebook, or whatever it was. And so I think it's time to have an honest conversation. If it's unintentional, you can tell her something she might not know about herself. If she really is negative, it would be really important for the future of the leadership team and the organization to figure out why, but also that is not a job description that any board that is successful will keep. You don't need a negative Nelly who's telling you all the reasons why things can't work, won't work, how many things have to change. So as always, listen, assess. Does she have a point? Is there anything actionable that she's saying, even though she might not be saying it in the best way? And if the answer to all of those things are no, we have great momentum, we have good things going on, everyone else is marching along happily, then I think it's her problem, not our problem. And as nicely as you can, exit her, and as frankly swiftly as you can, exit her from your leadership team. The other piece is, don't be afraid to name the elephant in the room, meaning if she's negative and nobody addresses it in real time, like calling her to say, wait, so and so. I just watched you roll your eyes and slam down your pen. What am I missing? Like, if you can't call her out publicly with, you're going to know your situation, whether that's good or bad, whether it's appropriate or inappropriate. At some point, either with your conversation, after you've talked to her, if she decides to leave, make sure that you say to your board, not sure if you've noticed, but so-and-so has chosen to step off the board. She had too many conflicting things, and we came to the conclusion together that that negative spirit that she brings into all of our meeting was not productive for us or for her. She's remaining a member. We're still friends, all of the rest, whatever the message is. Because ultimately, when someone misbehaves, the rest of the room is waiting for your leadership to nip it in the bud. And it's the same thing for the board member who doesn't show up, who overpromises and underdelivers. You've got to have the conversation. And then when you've dealt with it, be able to publicly tell your board, hey, look, I wasn't asleep at the switch. I wanted to give her every opportunity. I know she's going through a difficult time right now, but we have met several times, or we have spoken about it several times, or however, whatever your truth is. And so we've decided together that this isn't the right job. Now, I'm going to pause in case, welcome to those of you who came in sort of halfway through that answer to our first question. Happy to have you all here. If you've ever had a difficult board member that you needed to exit from the party of your board, did you have a strategy that worked? Have you faced it? Are you facing it now? And maybe you're not sure how to handle it. Any feedback from all of you beautiful experts? Okay. All right. Well, hopefully it'll never happen. And hopefully, more importantly, that none of us will ever be that negative Nelly, right? So thank you very much for asking that question. When I'm reminded that when we all met in November for the chapter chat, we ran out of time and there were lots of membership related questions. And so in case you were a part of that, but somehow missed that, we sat down and recorded a Zoom that is covering all the questions from the November chat. And I'm answering them all. And it is in Community Forum, which is where all of our chapter chat recordings go. It's clearly labeled, so you'll know how to find it. And you can go back and look at it. But because of that, I'm going to start with the questions on membership. So I took a one off on the board to get us started. And now I'm going to focus on some of the membership questions. Let's see. A question came in that says, does anyone provide sponsored memberships to grantees, and at what title, executive director or only lower ranked? So here's what I'm going to tell you. Most chapters have some version of a sponsorship for their members. However, I would not necessarily advise you to sponsor a grantee to become a member. Now, if we go back to Cincinnati, our very first grant went to the McMicken Dental Clinic. There was one staff dentist and they served the homeless and uninsured. Our grant gave them 5 new dental chairs. The one dentist was Dr. Judy Allen, and she made very little money, obviously. She's working in the field that she is. And her husband is a pastor, also not a high earner. She was so compelled by the process and the donation that she received that she and her husband decided that they were going to become, that she was going to become a member, and that they were going to be sacrificial if they needed to, in order to make sure that she could be a part of this organization. Now, She has re-upped every single year. She has recruited nonprofits to apply. She has gone out and brought in new members. After a nonprofit receives an award, she meets with them and says, you've gotten the best of the best. Pay it forward by joining the organization. If your grantees are not excited enough, engaged enough, motivated enough, fill in the blank. When you give somebody a membership and it's fully sponsored, it might feel like you're giving them a to-do list, but it just might not go the way you want it to go. So I'm always very cautious about giving sponsorships that feel like they have strings attached. I would say another question related to sponsoring members is I'll get a slightly different question, and that is, gosh, we really need a social media expert, or we really need a woman of color, or we really need a woman who is below the age of 40. But they would say, financially, it's a hardship for them. So, can we sponsor their membership? And in exchange, they can be our social media expert, or they can be our grant liaison, or they can be our whatever. The reason that I don't like that is when you look around the board table, you're going to have a whole lot of volunteers who are working like crazy, who are not getting paid. And as soon as you kind of set that stage and you compensate someone for volunteering with you, it makes them a little different. Now, and the kind of different that you don't necessarily want. Now, that being said, it's perfectly fine to have a sponsored member who serves on your leadership team. It's perfectly fine to have sponsored members who are involved in committees and very active. It's the difference is sort of the why. I want to join, I'm unable to afford it. If someone sponsors my membership, I'm going to be happy because I wanted to join in the first place. Or I may have been a member for a year, didn't think I could afford to do it again. You tap me and say, Wendy, we could use your skills on the board. And I say, thank you. And I would love nothing more, but I can't afford it. In that case, sponsoring the member is great. So it's the intent, it's the why. And the why has to come from the heart of the member wanting to be a part of it, and not, I want to give them something, or I want their perspective, or any reason that's us focused. It needs to be member focused. I'm going to say one more thing about sponsorship, and then I will open it up in case y'all have different opinions or experiences or questions related to it. But almost every chapter does offer some sort of a scholarship or a sponsorship. Many of them are full ride. We'll pay your full $1,100 or your full $1,000. Many also are matching. They'll say to a woman, I appreciate that you might not be able to do $1,000 this year, but how much can you do? And if she says 100 or 500 or 800 or whatever the number is, then they sponsor the difference. Chapters like Traverse City do an amazing job. Pensacola does an amazing job in sponsorships. And these chapters have been quietly sponsoring people from their very first year. So it is a really important part. They promote it, people know about it. But the identity of the members who have been sponsored is confidential. Often the board doesn't even know which members are sponsored and which aren't. Why? It doesn't matter. It's not a metric that any of us need to worry about. We're happy to have the member there. And I will tell you, in Traverse City, there is a particular woman who has been sponsored multiple times. Somehow she thinks I know, which I now know because every year she thanks me. And I I just sort of smile. It's like, I wish I could say I sponsored you all this time. It's not me. Like I've said it. She's thanked me every year. Um, so it's an important aspect of what we do and how we serve our community, but make sure that the motives are very clear and that it is confidential so that nobody will ever be considered less than or apart from, and that everybody is, please, please, please don't get into half members. I can only pay $500. Okay, you can be a half member. Please don't do that. Um, don't do fractional memberships. Don't do shared membership. My sister and I, we think it's going to be fun. Please, it will come back to haunt you. It will take you down a road you don't want to go. Um, all that, though, sponsorship. Anybody have additional questions about sponsorships or other opinions or circumstances that you might handle differently in your chapter? Okay, we have a quiet group today. And
Wendy, I just thought of something to add from Atlanta, and
thank
that
you.
is that we do have a scholarship program. It's a $500 match. We, at a certain point, I think probably it was our second year, um, we were meeting these great women that were involved in the nonprofits and the grantees, and we're like, oh, we thought about it. We're like, oh, maybe we could do some sort of scholarship specifically for nonprofits to get them more engaged. And we ended up not doing it. And what ended up happening is that we have had some of our grantee women that applied through our scholarship program because they were so drawn to the mission. They wanted to be part of it. They want to be part of supporting other organizations. And they applied just like anyone else through the scholarship program to become a member and received one. So we do have grantee women who have become members and have had a match, but it wasn't specifically, this is reserved for nonprofits or grantee. So I think it underscores your point. It was more about the woman. The woman wanted to be a member, wanted to be part of it. She happened to be one of our grantees, and that's how she learned about us, but it was just through the regular scholarship program.
Excellent. Yep. Hi, Carrie.
Hi, Wendy. I haven't seen you in a while. Good to see you.
I know I missed
Sorry, I'm
you.
trying to multitask. I was folding some laundry and listening to all this stuff, but we've worked hard on we call it a fellowship program because it just started to get a little confusing with sponsors, people that sponsor
Right.
us and whatnot. And actually Detroit helped us a lot. We
Mm-hmm.
met with them and we took the financial piece out of it on the front end and just really went for being very open and honest about we need somebody younger. We need somebody from a different zip code. We need, somebody of color. Just different things of like, what is your network that you can bring into potentially us? And then we send a letter that is really like, this is what we hope you'll get out of us networking with these women from different groups, blah, blah. And we keep it very gentle. This is what we hope that you will do is come to one event a year, try to participate, bring a friend. And it's very gentle. And then we did that. We got all excited. And then the next year we're like, oh God, we don't know who can afford what. So we drafted a letter with our belonging diversity, equity, inclusion group. And basically it was like, because we take finances out, we didn't ask you before you joined. And I'm paraphrasing there, it's written better in all of these situations.
Sure.
Um, and then we say, we'd love to have you come back. And here's the like, let us know what you need. Yes, I'm in. I'd love to be a full member. I'll send my $1,000. I can only do 500. I need a full fellowship again. And I will say the first year we did that, two of the women wrote back and said, I really appreciate the way that you phrased that and that made it feel unintimidating and honest and just I'm not looking at asking for your finances, but you bring something to the table. We enjoy having you be part of our membership. Let us know what you need. And again, the board doesn't know, but everyone, there's a small pocket of us that know who gets the fellowship, but taking the framework away from being just financial has really helped us. And we did reach out our first year because we had a lot of money to the past recipients and said if there was anybody on their board or volunteer or someone in the organization that would like to be a part of it. And we did have a couple join. They didn't, because they're so busy with their own organizations. We've had a lot of executive directors join, but the two women that were actually working, I mean, not that the EDs weren't working, but the volunteers, the day-to-day, they ended up not being able to feel, they didn't feel like they gave enough time back. But it wasn't a fail. It just, they felt like they couldn't contribute. But taking the money out for us has been a huge win.
Thank you, Carrie. If you want to share those documents,
Yes. Let me see.
one of the things we're doing, hopefully all of you are familiar that we have Impact Manager, which is our modular learning system on the website. But we're rebuilding it into something far more robust. We're calling it Impact 100 Academy, but it's going to be very heavy on actionable resources and sharing best practices and a couple of different versions. So I would tell all of you on the call, if there are things that you believe your chapter does well, please send us that information. And so that every day we are in conversation with chapters who are just launching or chapters who are hitting a certain point in their growth trajectory. And they're always looking for that really good information. So, Carrie, I would love that from you if you're okay with that. And if any of you have other best practices.
Wendy, I have not been super active in that. Will you send me the link in the chat to go there? I have not really, but if you do, I'll save it and I'll add that stuff to it.
So you will need a logon in order to go in and,
Okay,
Lori,
I've done
would you
that.
mind getting Carrie? Oh, you do have that?
The old one, the council website.
Yeah.
I've got that. Yeah.
Okay, if you sign in there,
Yeah.
but we'll add it. We'll have to add it on. Like, there's not a way for you to upload anything
So send
there,
it
if
to
that makes
you.
sense. Yeah, please.
Okay, I see from Lori. Okay.
Yeah. Or to Lori. That's fine.
Lori, will you put your email in the chat, then I'll be quiet.
You're good. Any other thoughts on sponsorship? Okay, terrific. Thank you. And thanks, Carrie. We had another question, and the question was, it's about membership. It's a big one. Membership, recruiting, and retention strategies. So that is a really big question. So I'm going to pause on that to kind of get your juices flowing. And then I'm going to tell you there's a much more specific question. And this question is, what are your thoughts on thanking all of our members over the past 5 years for supporting our local nonprofits, wishing them well, etc.? So as our chapters reach these important milestones like 5 years, 10 years, any other anniversary, crossing over $1 million, often we as leaders, we want to make sure that we recognize and thank them. So there are a million ways for you to do it, depending on your organization. First and foremost, I think a letter from the founders. If it was a founding co-presidency, individual tri-presidency, but from your founders. And if the founders are no longer leading, then your current board. So maybe founding board and current board, founding president and current president. In your situation, you're going to know who the right people are. What you want to do, of course, is it would be lovely to write them a beautiful letter that you actually get printed and you mail it the old-fashioned way. And maybe it's recognition. Maybe it's a certificate that they can hang. It is something that says, thanks to you, Impact 100 ABC has given away this much money and, to this many nonprofits, and we're continuing to grow, sort of a recognition piece. That's kind of the easiest lift. you can control all the aspects of it. You can say what you want to say. You can spend as much money on the paper and the printing and the mailing and all the rest of it. I think on the other side is doing some convenings. If 2025, which I assume it must be, is the anniversary year, celebrate your 5th anniversary throughout the entire year. So invite all of your members to a recognition occasion. These are the kinds of things that getting donations, both in kind and sometimes it's capacity building grants. You might have members of your leadership team, past and present, all chip in a certain amount of money to help pull off some of these events. So these are outside the ordinary, but they're celebratory, where you invite the members and they might hear from 3 of your grantees over the last 5 years who have an update and a compelling story of what it meant. They might hear from other members. They might hear from the leadership team. So I always say, begin with the end in mind. Well, we all know I don't say that. Stephen Covey says that, but I practice that regularly. So when you begin with the end in mind, what do you want them to feel? Why are you thanking them? What do you want them to do something with your gratitude or just feel good? When you specifically know what you're building toward, you can reverse engineer it to be like, if I genuinely want them to know nothing more than you matter, your membership matters, whether you were here for a year or all 5 years, you made us the organization we are today, and you've helped the community. We couldn't ever have given away this much money if you were not a member. If that's your thing, you can create a funny video, a heartwarming video. You can have an event. You can send a gift. There are a million things you could do, but you want to think about what you want. Now, if you want them to feel appreciated and connected, and you've got a lofty goal ahead, and you really want them to come back if they're lapsed, and to continue to be a member if they're current members, your message might be different. It might be, because of you, we've done X. However, as we look to the future, our current stats, I was in a conversation with another group, and their community has 150,000 women. And when you understand that there are 150,000 women in your community and that this percent of them is homeless, this percent of them is unemployed or underemployed, they're fleeing domestic violence, they're on food stamps, those stats are also available. And so you want to celebrate, thank, and then sort of take a look at the year ahead and years ahead and say, our work is not done. I hope the same spirit that promoted you to become a member and be involved, that you will link arms with us in the future, because we can't get there without you. We need as many women as we can get. So please stay with us or come back to us and help us grow our membership and set a lofty goal. Our goal is to make sure that our community level of X is better. Take a measurement. What is it that you're trying to achieve? Maybe it's a dollar amount of how many grants. Maybe you've never funded anything yet in environment or arts, and you feel like the community is thriving. However, we've got these gaps. Help us close those gaps. So it's really a matter of authentically and sincerely recognizing their contribution and thanking them for what they did, while also inviting them to continue to be a part of the mission to make your community a good, safe, healthy, educated, employed space for all people to live, work, and play. And the way that we do that is through our membership and our grants from Impact 100. I have seen special swag created for a 5-year anniversary. I have seen commemorative, like champagne flute kind of things that you could have orange juice or you could have champagne or bubbly water or whatever you want. I have seen car magnets that say, you know, we celebrate 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. Sometimes there are yard signs. You have to live in a place where people are mostly in houses and not in high rises. I've seen yard signs that says, I helped donate $2.1 million over the last 5 years. You know, give them something to celebrate. Maybe it's a paperweight, it's a water bottle, it's a shirt. And if it's something, if you want it to be a recruiting mechanism, then maybe you host an event. And if you've been a member for a year, you have this color t-shirt, 2 years that color, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, and then have the rainbow of people arrive at a park or in a public place, wherever it is you're going to do it, at a certain day where there might be appetizers and bubbly water in a cash bar where you're celebrating what you did and you're taking this epic photograph of sort of the colors of your impact. So event planners can take a way deeper dive, and I'm only scratching the surface. So anyone, have you celebrated a milestone that you thought went really well? Of course, if you're Milwaukee, you could host the Global Day of Impact just for your celebration because we also did that this year. But if you celebrated a milestone and you feel like it went well, it accomplished what you wanted, or it fell short, I know the community would benefit from hearing your story. Any thoughts or feedback on that? Yep. Hi, Barb. Thanks.
Yeah, we did one for the 10th anniversary of Garden State, and that was a couple of years ago. It was a cocktail party. We gave away a couple of special grants that year in the areas of environment and the arts, which tend to be are less frequently selected applicants. We also invited all of our past recipients to come and set up like kind of a booth in a big area. And we devoted a fair amount of time to allowing all of our members to walk around the exhibit area and talk to the past grantees and hear what's going on currently with their organizations. I think we also published kind of an impact report, a publication that we handed out that night that had blurbs about each of the past grantees. And we've continued to use that, when we've been talking to sponsors or, doing events with nonprofits about the kinds of grants that we make. So I think it was well received. We haven't begun any discussions as far as I know. Celeste, correct me, for anything coming for a 15-year, but that's also a couple years away.
We have time before that happens.
That's right. No, I think that's really wise. One of the things that you mentioned that I didn't, which is so important, is the report, the impact report. And one of y'all also asked the question of how many chapters do sort of an impact report or an annual report. And I would say it's very spotty. Some do and some don't. But most should be looking at it at least on these milestones, to be able to say, here was our 5 years of impact. We've given away this much money and this many people have been served. This many meals have been served, clothing, whatever whatever the measurables are for the particular grants that you funded, you know, that will be an iconic document for you to use until your next anniversary, if you will. I know that Martin County does, and I can't remember what they call it, but they have sort of this report that they update all the time that I'm sure it has a more clever name than impact report, but it really talks about where the grants have gone and what the effects of the grants are. Milwaukee, you also do a very good job of spelling out where the money has gone and the difference that it has made. And so you definitely want to look.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Very nice.
Yeah. So this
Very,
is
very nice.
the 10-year report.
I remember. I got that at the lunch. I
Barb,
loved that.
could you
Yeah,
share
that's
that? Could you
beautiful.
share that in like a PDF with all of us, or send it to Lori?
Probably. I'll have to talk to our communications chair to see what she's got, but I bet we have it.
Because we're looking at creating something. We're on the 10-year right now, and so we've been doing a lot of 10-year celebratory things, but the big thing is talking about starting this year-end report, but having a 10-year document for our 10-year annual award celebration would be great. If anybody else has anything that you can share with Milwaukee, that would be great, because we really want to start preparing for that.
I would love it if you would share it with Global so that we can share it. You can also share it with Milwaukee, don't get me wrong. But if we have it, then we can help to continue to spread the word. Celeste, I think you were going to say something.
I was just going to add to what Barb said. As a result of the 10-year anniversary report, we made the decision to do an annual impact report. So the one that Barb showed, and we also have one in PDF form that I'll send to Lori, which we just published for 2024. And it's our intention to refresh it every single year. It has the grantee highlights that Barb mentioned. We include our financials. We recognize our sponsors. Because we also wanted to be open about our financials, how much it costs to run our chapter. So it's all in there, and I'll share it with Lori so you have it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Okay, I think we covered that really well, and more will follow. Looking toward that big audacious question. Recruiting and retention strategies. It's big. It's all encompassing. So the first thing I'll say is just what I said when we opened this chat, which is if you go to Community Forum, you'll get to see an interview where I was asked and I answered a bunch of questions around this. However, I think it's important to cover it again. When we talk about recruiting and retention, one of the trickiest parts, it's one of the most important aspects of the model, and it's one that many, many, many members will cite as one of the reasons why they joined, is that we allow our members to design their own experience. And so they get to select whether they want to volunteer and serve on a committee, whether they want to attend things that, they've been told that their only obligation is to make your donation and cast your vote. I happen to know that for some women who are not involved, they don't even cast their vote. They say, I trust my sisters in Impact who are more involved to vote appropriately. Others show up to the annual meeting and vote, and that's the one thing they do, and it's all they need to do. Our research that was completed in 2020 and 2021, we really looked and measured the benefits of membership and the difference between being an engaged member and an unengaged member, among many other things. By the way, we do hope to update that research beginning this year. And so the more chapters we get to participate, the better off we'll be. So there will be more on that later. But in this research, what we learned is the difference between an unengaged member and an engaged member is only 1 or 2 mission-focused touch points. That's all it takes. So a lot of chapters, when they want to engage with their membership, they come up with social events and wine tastings and hikes and all those things. What I say about those kinds of events is that they're high risk and low reward. It takes your volunteers as much time and effort to plan a social event, to sip and paint, to hike, to go and learn how to bake brie for an appetizer, and all the other things that we do to keep our members entertained. Because our members will often say, I wish you had more social events. I often say that sometimes the questions that you get from members, the feedback that you get from members, sometimes they're things that you really should pay heed to and internally decide how you can better address. But there are certain things that should set a bell off in your head that says, what this comment tells me, or what this question is alluding to, is that we as an organization haven't done a thorough enough job of fully explaining the model and how it works. Because if they fully understood the model, they would understand. The reason that these social events, and I'm not talking about recruiting, you definitely have to have recruiting events. That's a different story altogether. So when I say no social, other than recruiting, when we do engagement social things, you have to put as much time and energy into planning it, into getting people there, into, all the checks and the venue and everyone feel welcome. So if I'm an unengaged member and I get invited to a wine tasting and I go, if I don't like the wine, am I now not going to like my membership? If when I showed up, everybody were people I already knew and I really wanted to join this so I could see more people that I didn't know, so will I stop because the right people weren't there? Or did I not feel welcomed because I am not a wine person? I wasn't sure what to order, and I felt like some of the other women laughed when I didn't know how to order a glass of wine. In other words, the best intentions and all your hard work that you think this is going to be great, you run the risk. Or if I said, I want to meet my BFFs, I'm new to town, I want to meet friends. I could go to one of your events, meet a bunch of great women and be like, done. I have my friend group. I can move on. If you're going to do an event for engagement, if you're going to do an event for recruitment, it's got to be mission focused. Full stop. Now, I will tell you that there are exceptions. And if your community is one of those exceptions, there are exceptions. Palm Beach County, Southern Palm Beach County, big time. Northern Palm Beach County, a little bit less so, but still significant. They do an incredible amount of social events all the time, and it's everything. And we've had the conversation countless times that high risk, low reward. What they will tell me, though, is that in their community, that's what people do. And that if they, Impact 100, if they are not doing social events, then they might not be able to retain their members. I believe them. They know their community. And so if you feel like that's your community too, then be very intentional about the events that you do pull together. Any event that we offer, any event, big, small, informal or formal, we have to lead with a sense of belonging. We talk about DEI, we talk about belonging, we talk about bringing people together. But when we walk that out, it means being mindful of where we hold the event, both from the context of, can you get there on public transportation? Is it on the wrong side of town? Or the reverse? Is it expensive to park and to get there, and so we're putting burdens out? Or is it in a neighborhood or a part of town that doesn't feel safe? Is it physically challenging to get to? Is the are the acoustics bad? Are there not good sight lines to your presentation or to your remarks? Does the microphone or whatever you're using for your audio work? We have to look at everyone that we want there. And if we want women of every age and stage and every economic status and every race, ethnicity, and so forth. We want married, we want single, we want works outside the home and don't, in Catholic school, public school, private school, homeschool. Like when you start thinking about the diversity, every event that you do goes under the microscope of who's going to feel welcome here. And the answer needs to be if this is a private event and the people who are going to be welcome here are the people in this neighborhood, great. Own that and don't pretend that it's something different. But if you want other people, you've got to change up where you do your events and how you do your events. It's really getting down to the detail of whether I'm new or whether I've been a member forever. I don't expect your volunteers to memorize everybody's name, but make sure you've got name tags with big writing. And if women are supposed to bring their own name tags and they forget, make sure that the sticker name tags that you give them instead are attractive so that it doesn't look like I'm a dork because I forgot my fancy plastic or metal name tag. Tying in mission to whatever you do turns it from an event that's high risk to an event that's high engagement. And that's the key. Sometimes it's nothing more than sitting around either a restaurant or a club or a private home or an office and saying, I joined Impact 100 because why did you join? It's having a conversation, getting a little summary on last year's grantees, and then saying, this one was always my favorite, but now that I see what this one's doing, I'm so happy they got funding as well, or I'm really enamored with their work and I might go and volunteer. Engage them in the work that you do, and control the uncontrollable. This is whenever I come and speak at any chapter, I'll always talk about the arc of the story, right? So where do you want me in relation to everything else? And sometimes we'll have nonprofits speak, sometimes we won't, sometimes we'll play recordings, sometimes we won't, sometimes we'll have Q&A. You've got to try to control as much of it as you can, because if somebody goes off message, if they go long, if they go short, if they mess up, if something, not mess up like any one of us can do, but I'm saying like they don't show up on time, they forget, they don't have the right day, they didn't bring the right document. Like you want to make sure that it's well orchestrated, it's simple, and people understand what their role is in this event. So if I'm on your leadership team or I'm on your membership committee, which might not be a part of your leadership team, you want to make sure that you are bringing people in that are there simply to greet people, simply to look for the woman who's alone and go sit next to her. Look for the woman that you don't know and introduce yourself and ask her about herself. You don't have to be a walking Impact 100 encyclopedia. If they ask you a question that you can't answer, you can say, gosh, I never thought of that. Come on, I want to introduce you to so-and-so on the board and let her answer this question. And I can learn too. Be intentional about all of the times you come together and why. And that includes in your boardroom too. Starting every board meeting with a mission moment where somebody tells you, I was in the grocery store and I was afraid to bring it up because I didn't know the woman behind me, but I asked her, hey, have you ever heard of Impact 100? And I think she's going to join. that little story in your board meeting might be the catalyst that will get others to do more. So I'm going to pause on that. Any exciting, different membership retention and recruitment strategies that you're particularly fond of? Okay. All right. No worries. Thank you. Okay. Let's see. Now I'm going to tell you that a couple of these questions are very technical. And so, and I'm the only one, well, Haley and I think, are the only ones who can see all the questions. But there are a couple of things that I will say, Lori, Haley, and I will send to you. So if you have asked for examples of documents, if you've asked for very granular kind of recommendation, we're happy to send it. So someone was looking for board description, job descriptions, board roles. We can give you a sample of that and we'll send it to everyone who registers. So you don't have to worry about that. But one of the things that I'll say about board roles and board descriptions that will likely not be included in what we send you, and that is that if today Donna's on the board of Traverse City and Donna happens to be a whiz at spreadsheets and she's the recruiting chair, and by the way, she also knows a little bit about graphic design, so she can take any form and make it look like it's a branded Impact 100 Traverse City form. Now, when she rolls off, we need somebody who can do the membership recruitment. That's really what her title is. But if she's the only one who's managing your database, which is often can happen, your membership chair can often be the one who kind of handles the spreadsheet because they're entering all the names, then that makes replacing her, you want to make sure that the job description fits the person, but then recognize that if that person has extraordinary talent outside of the scope of a typical membership recruitment person, that you also take note. Okay, we know we need these skills for member recruitment, but by the way, we're going to need someone who's good at Canva and can do the graphic art, and we're going to need a database manager. So that when you're looking, the same thing is true. Oftentimes the secretary might be the database manager, but sometimes they're not. So you want to make sure that you have all the skills that you need represented on the board, but don't get too hung up on replacing the person. More than once, I have talked to chapters and they're like, my word, so-and-so is a jack of all trades. She just picks up everything. We're going to need 3 or 4 people to take her place. That's true. That is absolutely true. And for those of you who are presidents, you know what I'm talking about, because presidents have to have 87 skills. But not every president has exactly the same skills based on the team that's around her. So board roles, board job descriptions are helpful, but you're volunteers. So don't be afraid to say that I need 2 or 3 people to do the job that this one woman did, or gosh, we just got Donna on our board, so we can combine these 3 positions and she can handle them all. So know that it'll go both ways, but as you grow, many hands make light work. So expanding from 1 to 2 or 3 in different roles will help you in the long term. Anybody want to add anything about that? Just know that they're coming. There were a couple of other things like that. Let's see. I'm going to pause here. We've got some I didn't cover. Quick question. We did have a question about what the best grant software is for grant evaluation. I would say by far the most popular is Submittable. And number 2 is MemberLeap and probably Foundant. do any of you have a grants platform that you prefer other than those I've named?
I can speak to this. We are Member Leap for everything, and our grants team is very fond of Foundant. So we are running both.
And
And
that's not unusual.
yeah, and there was talk about investigating running our grants platform through Member Leap and dropping Foundant. But our grants team is they are the most well-oiled machine. And so we just didn't want to upset that ecosystem over there. And so we're going to continue running both. And we have the sponsorship, money in our budget to be able to do that. So that's where we're at on that.
Excellent. Hi, Matilda. Good to see
Hi,
you.
Wendy. Good. I would say we're Slide Room users, and
Oh, yeah.
we love Slide Room. Last time we investigated, it was half the price of Foundant. No, not Foundant. The first one you mentioned. I
Probably
forget the name.
Submittable.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Submittable.
Submittable.
Yeah, it was half the price of Submittable. But we've kept looking back and forth. It's been 5 years, and we think Slide Room is very effective.
Okay. Slide rule has gone in and out of favor. So has Wild Apricot used to be everybody's favorite for a while, and now I don't think very many people use it. But we are all smart women, and we know that if it's working, let it keep working. And if it's not working, keep your eyes open. We'll be doing more with that in the coming years to give you some help. I don't know how many of you are aware, but we started our relationship with Submittable after a focus group of women from different chapters none of whom were all that thrilled with what they had. And I shouldn't say that. Some liked what they had, others didn't. And they went through this massive evaluation, and that's where Submittable came up on the top. And so Global actually invested more than $15,000 to buy down the cost of Submittable for our chapters. Now, unfortunately, because every chapter is on a different cycle, like if you're happy with your current grants platform, just because you might be able to get Submittable at a lower price, it doesn't mean you're going to jump. And so we didn't get enough chapters to participate. And eventually they started increasing the price, and now it's quite pricey. So we are looking at it again, and we'll continue to, but we'll also look at Foundant. We'll also look at Slide Room. I mean, we want to look at Member Leap. We want to look at all these avenues to make sure that we're helping you where we can. Now, I will say, I can't believe it, but we're at the top of the hour right now. And so I do want to be very respectful of your time, especially in this point of December. So I thank you very much for being a part of it. If you have questions that didn't get answered, if you have anything additional, please email any one of us. We will happily have another meeting with you. We will happily reply by email. We'll do whatever you'd like. We have not officially announced, but I think we're announcing next week. Is that right, Haley, for the upcoming chapter chats?
They are out already and you can register.
Oh, well, good. So we've got January, February, March already booked. We can certainly do that, but we'll be able to speak in between via email or video, understanding that the ho holiday season will probably be a little spotty here at Global. But that doesn't mean that we can't make time between now and the next chat or whatever you need. So I thank you. I hope you all have an amazing year, and I hope that you really, truly feel a sense of accomplishment, of pride, of excitement for what you're doing in your local communities, because you're all literally making the world a better place. And it means the world that you are doing that and that you continue to. I know it's not easy. but I also know that it's worth it. And I am just incredibly grateful for the amazing work that you all are doing. So anything else for the good of the cause? If not, I will let you all enjoy the rest of your day and your holiday season.
Thank you
Is
for
that a
your
buy
time.
or
Thank
okay?
you.
Merry
Thank
Christmas.
you.
Bye.
Take good care. Bye bye.